I wasn't sleeping very well. I wasn't taking very good care of myself. And I was a terrible snorer. Like I snored so bad that it pushed my wife in the other bedroom for years. It's a snowball effect of all these things, just intimacy eroding, going away. At that point, then we separated, got a divorce, and I'm in like rock bottom. And I'm thinking, what do I need to be accountable for? And I started with my sleep. All right, let's try it. So I slapped it on and I went to bed. And when I woke up the next day, I felt like a teenager. And I knew then that we were onto something. We're actually tapping into this core emotion people feel. People feel held hostage by poor sleep or their partner, and they don't know what to do. Because here's the best part of the story, RJ, that my wife and I are back together.
How did the product gain traction so quickly? Like, how did you grow the product the way that you did? Alex, good morning from Melbourne, Australia. Welcome to the UltraGrowth podcast, man.
It's great to be here, man. This afternoon here in the States.
Yeah, where are you joining us from in the
I'm
States?
in Minneapolis.
Okay, and I noticed you actually got your product on your nose.
I do. This is one of our products. This is actually it's our Hero B product. We have our main hero, which is the mouth tape. And if I'd wore the mouth tape to the interview, probably wouldn't be a very good interview. Wouldn't be a lot of dialogue, but a lot of the stage talks I do, I'll actually go on stage wearing the mouth tape because I go on there and people go, "What the hell is he doing?" And then I stand there for about 5-6 seconds, and then I take it off. And then people cheer, and then I get started into my speech. But yes, this is our secondary hero product that I always wear because it's very distinct, very noticeable, and makes me stand out. And it looks cool.
It does. So do you wear it in regular life when you're out and about? Do you get lots of looks and
Yeah.
best marketing?
It depends. I mean, I don't always wear it, but there'll be times where when I wear the nose strip, I'll wear it. I always wear it when I work out. So when I go for a run, when I go to the gym, when I'm in the sauna and the cold plunge, all of that, I'm always doing that because it just helps open up the nose and reminds me to focus on nasal breathing. And sometimes I wear it when I sleep, sometimes I don't. I'm always wearing the mouth tape when I sleep. And then whenever I'm on camera or whenever I'm, at some kind of an event where I'm representing the brand, the founder, and then I'm always in character. I'm always me. I'm always in brand. This is just how I look everywhere you see and you find me on the internet. And sometimes I'll be out like at a restaurant with my wife and somebody will see me and go, "Hey, are you the hostage tape guy?" Or "Do you work for hostage tape?" Because they see it all and they see it everywhere, all over the internet.
It's brilliant. Walking billboard, man. And I appreciate it. So we're going to dive into your journey in respect to nose breathing. What actually led you to discover the importance of nasal breathing, and how did it actually personally impact your life?
Oh boy. So that's a good story. So for me, I actually went through a divorce of all things. It sounds crazy. And everybody right now is going, "Wait a minute. You went through a divorce to discover nasal breathing and then start this company?" So for me, as you can see on my wall here, I was a football player, American football player. That was my first love. And so I was a football player, and then I started a software company that I bootstrapped, and I ran that for about 16 years. And through that whole journey, you have all these ups and downs and new chapters in life. And I lost myself, and I was super focused on the business, and I wasn't sleeping very well. I wasn't taking very good care of myself, and I was a terrible snorer. Like I snored so bad that it pushed my wife in the other bedroom for years. And when that happened, it's a snowball effect of all these things just kind of happening after that. Resentment, intimacy eroding, going away. And I was super focused on my business. And at that point, then we separated, got a divorce. And when you go through divorce, everything freezes. You sell the house. You got all this stuff going on. And so I was actually living in my aunt's basement at the time, of all places. And I'm in like rock bottom. Okay. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do with myself? It's like this Jocko moment of extreme accountability. Like, what do I need to do? What do I need to be accountable for? and then run full head on into it and say, let's address this, and this. And I started with my sleep because I was such a bad snorer. And like most men, when we have an issue, we don't want to go to the doctor, right? Especially in this day and age where I think there's a mistrust in the medical community right now, where people don't want to go see doctors. They don't want to trust them. It's kind of like, would you, if you're going to go to a trainer and get trained, you don't want to see that your trainer's 300 pounds overweight. You want to see that your trainer like looks fit and he looks like what you'd want to be. And the same goes for our doctors. Like, you're supposed to go get health advice, and this person's supposed to take care of you, and they don't look very good, or maybe things that they're saying, you're like, wait a minute, are we sure about this? Because now we're learning all these new things about the food we're eating and drugs and everything, right? So you can't help but be skeptical in this day and age. And us men, we like to figure things out ourselves and just power through it. So it was just something, my poor sleep and my snoring was something I never addressed. And I just proceeded to snore like a chainsaw for so long that I finally said, all right, I need to look into this. And I did what most guys do. You go into Amazon and you go, how do I stop snoring? Right? And you find mouth guards that don't work. They just kind of hurt your mouth. They don't fit very well. Or you look for a pillow or any gadget you think that might work. And then none of it worked, of course. So I then went deeper and I kept digging. And I went further down the rabbit hole where I discovered an article that was written by James Nestor. James Nestor, best-selling author of the book Breath. And it's a phenomenal read, super easy read that everybody should read. And he talks about this experiment where they go to Stanford Medical Center, and for 10 days, they plug their nose. And over those 10 days, he developed sleep apnea. He snored like crazy and had dangerously low levels of oxygen in his blood. And then after those 10 days, they unplugged their nose, mouth taped. Everything went away in one day. So for me, the light bulb went off and I went, okay, how have I been an athlete my whole life? And my coaches have never taught me the dangers of mouth breathing and the amazing benefits of nose breathing. And so I thought, was it really that simple? Because I immediately knew, I'm a mouth breather, big time. In fact, I had issues when I was growing up from my dentist. So I would go to my dentist and I had huge cavities, issues in my back, bigger teeth. And my dentist couldn't figure out why. And this was back in the 80s. And so the dentists back then weren't quite as holistic as they are now, right? So he couldn't figure out why. And he thought I was bulimic, of all things. And I'm like, I'm a kid who plays football. I'm active. I'm not overweight. I'm very in shape. Like, that doesn't make any sense. He's like, I can't explain it. And so we thought maybe I was just drinking too much orange juice. I don't know. So now later in life, it's because I was mouth breathing, my whole childhood. And for the audience out there wondering, well, why does that matter? We can get into the science of it all, but real quickly, as it relates to your teeth, what happens is when you mouth breathe, all of the saliva evaporates, and there's good bacteria that protects the enamel in your teeth. So when you mouth breathe, it evaporates, bad bacteria forms and eats away at the enamel and causes cavities. And so almost every dentist can identify mouth breathers. When they sit in their chair and they look in their mouth, they'll know, yeah, you're a mouth breather. You should learn to keep your mouth shut. Try some mouth tape. A lot of dentists are doing that now. So going through that journey, then I realized, wow, mouth taping. This sounds crazy, but I got to try this. So I went on Amazon and I bought just what I thought, I needed to buy. Because at the time, mouth tape really wasn't what it is now. Obviously, we're the market leader. We've created this category that everybody is starting to really learn what mouth tape is. And so I just bought something, I got it, and I had that initial thought, everybody has it. So when you try mouth taping for the first time, and if anybody's watching this or listening thinking about mouth taping, the first thought that crosses through that dome is, wait a minute, what if my nose gets stuffed up when I'm sleeping? Am I going to die? It's a perfectly normal reaction. And I had the same thought. But then I went, no, my nose was meant to breathe. Like, I'll be fine. All right, let's try it. So I slapped it on and I went to bed. And when I woke up the next day, I felt like a teenager. Like, the amount of energy that I had, I felt like just my 15-year-old son, right? Because when you get poor sleep, it stacks, right? And when you finally get good sleep, it's jolting. And so I couldn't believe how I felt. And I immediately, as an entrepreneur, I immediately knew, okay, this is something. This is an opportunity because I have a problem that I can solve. And I'm feeling anecdotally like what this is doing, how life-changing this is for me. And I knew then that we were onto something with this concept of mouth taping. And then it was a matter of like, how are we going to take this, have a moat around it for an idea, build a brand around it, and then make it what it is, now.
Yeah, that's a great introduction. And we're going to unpack the nasal breathing piece as well as the commercial journey, because there's a lot in that. So I think it's interesting, and I think it's important that you did mention the marriage piece, right? Like, I remember when I met my wife, and women do not like mouth breathing. Like, they just, there's an aversion there. And I was with my wife the other day on a plane, and the dude next to me was just out of control, snoring, right? He was just nasty. And I remember looking at my wife, and I remember thinking to myself, like, some poor person needs to sleep with this dude, right? Like, and how unattractive that would actually be. And to your point, like, if you're snoring and you're just nasty at night, it's going to create issues, and there's a logical process that then, flows from there. You're not sleeping together, you're not intimate, and hence the divorce. So that very much does make sense to me as to like how that could happen. The interesting thing, you're talking about how, particularly with the cavities, like, I find it interesting that our body doesn't naturally protect us, or our body doesn't naturally make us breathe through our nose if the consequences for mouth breathing are so detrimental to our body. You would have thought biologically there would have been some process to kind of ensure that we are breathing through the nose. I just find that interesting.
Well, you could argue, RJ, that's what that's kind of why the mouth is there, right? Like, the way that nature designed these passageways to be a backup. You could argue that it was designed that way for that reason, maybe.
In terms of the science behind nasal breathing, has there been a lot of work in the field?
Yeah, so there's been a ton. Here's what's interesting is when you talk about mouth taping, there's always people that come out of the woodwork and say how dangerous it is and this and that and all the other. But it's like, but the idea of nose breathing has been studied a lot, right? How beneficial it is. And then to attack mouth taping as harmful or dangerous sounds kind of funny when you think about, well, flip it around, flip your thinking and think about how amazing and important nasal breathing is, right? And so that's what I think is interesting is, yeah, there's not a ton of like studies on mouth taping, but there doesn't really need to be. Nobody wants to spend all that money on doing studies on mouth taping because there's plenty of research on nose breathing, right? And you can do it for yourself, and you can find out just how you feel.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I remember reading James Nestor's book, and I think even Wim Hof stuff touches on it, right? That kind of the breathing in cold therapy. And as an ultra runner, I've tried breathing through my nose. Sometimes it's challenging if it's cold, right? Because it is cold here in Victoria, your nose gets plugged. But really looking to kind of optimize the way that I exercise through nose breathing. And I believe in your kind of theory around experimentation, right? Like, if you do something and it works for you, I know a lot of people that have done this and swear by it. I think it's something that you really have to explore, particularly if you want to optimize. When you're talking about mouth breathing and the hostage tape in particular, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that you come across? I think we touched on some of them, but what are some of the concerns or misconceptions or just crazy, ideas that, people may have in respect to how it might impact them negatively or just concerns in general?
Well, I think number one, people always think that you're going to die if you mouth tape, which sounds crazy. I can understand why people would think that, like uneducated people who maybe haven't actually spent the time to learn about it. It's easy to go, oh yeah, if you cover the largest hole in your face that they think you're getting oxygen from, well, that seems kind of dumb, right? So it seems logical, but it's not. And so that's definitely one. And then another one is when we actually go in and we talk about it and we explain the science behind it, that also always gets a reaction that most people don't quite understand. So there's what I tell people is there's this concept called the Bohr effect, right? Where when in our body, if we have more CO2 in our body, then our body's able to use the oxygen because there's a 1-for-1 exchange. And that idea of slowing down the exhalation of CO2 for people and actually keeping more CO2 in the body, it seems counterintuitive for most people. They think, wait a minute, having more CO2 in the body means you're going to get more oxygen? That doesn't make sense to people, right? But it's because of this scientific principle of, oxygen comes in and CO2 goes out. It's that right there, right? So really simple, easy concept that it's a scientific principle that when you explain it, go, oh, okay, I guess I get it. If that's the principle and that's the way it works, it makes sense. And then when you actually try it, especially you as an ultra runner, like if you've ever really committed to nasal breathing, you'll be able to last longer, right? You'll be able to power through runs much better than if you're huffing and puffing in your mouth.
Yeah, I play and experiment with it quite a bit, Alex. I have real slow runs, particularly when it's not as cold, where I am breathing through my nose consciously. Sometimes, it can get harder as you start to get uphill, where you start to really try to power through tough inclines. You just need to kind of open up. But let's shift the conversation to how you then created the product. So I think that was great, right? Like you realized, you found the problem, light bulb turns on. How did the product gain traction so quickly? Like how did you grow the product the way that you did?
Yeah, so I knew that we had to get people's attention. In this day and age, this is the age of social media, right? We're seeing the downfall of mainstream media. It's because social media and all of these other outlets, these channels, they're rising. This is what people are paying attention to. So I knew that Facebook advertising, Instagram advertising, YouTube ads, these were the things that were going to power scaling and growing. So with that, I knew that this was going to be about building a brand. And I was really inspired by Liquid Death. In Liquid Death, right, they're selling the biggest commodity on the planet. They're selling water. What did he do? What did Mike do? He created this really cool, fun brand around, it's great water. I love Liquid Death. It's very high quality water, but you got this great brand. And people usually don't buy on logic. They buy on emotion, right? People will buy things that they feel connected to or they like, it moves them, or they're inspired by, right? Usually. Yes, there's a few things that you'll buy just because it makes sense and it's logical, but that's what I figured out and I knew we needed to lean into, right? And Moise Ali, the founder of Native Deodorant, he talks about this too, where when you go down the aisles of Target and you see a big wall of white for a product, you know there's an opportunity there. And the opportunity is that, all right, there's probably a big enough TAM and there's a chance to stand out. And so I knew, okay, is there a big enough problem here? Yes, there is. Because the reality is there's 100 in the US, there's 128 million households in the US. And over 71% of them are mouth breathing at night when they sleep. Check. Big enough TAM. And then you multiply that, times the rest of the world. There's a lot of people, right, that are mouth breathing, and we shouldn't be. And so then I said, okay, that's checked. Now, am I able to actually build a brand around this that I can inspire men and actually get people's attention? And the story behind hostage tape came down to, because again, everybody's probably thinking, why would you call it hostage tape? That sounds like the craziest, like fire your marketing team is a common comment people will say. Like, why would you do that? That's the dumbest thing ever. So when my wife and I were separated and I was mouth taping, I would warn my kids. I would say, hey guys, if you come into the room and you bust through, I'm going to warn you, right? It's going to look like I'm being held hostage, so don't freak out. I'm just wearing mouth tape. Because when you see somebody wearing mouth tape for the first time, they look crazy. It looks wild. Okay. And I didn't think about it at the time, but then later I went, that's it. Hostage tape. Because yes, the obvious call out is you do kind of look like you're being held hostage. But on the flip side of the coin, we're actually tapping into this core emotion people feel. People feel held hostage by poor sleep or their partner, and they don't know what to do. So don't let bad sleep hold you hostage. That became the idea. And I knew scrolling through Instagram and Facebook and everything, you're going to see hostage and stop and go, what is this? And you're never going to forget it. And you never do. People who see my brand never forget seeing hostage tape. And it's very polarizing on purpose, right? I want to attract the people that love it and get the quirkiness, the fun, don't take themselves too seriously, but love the coolness of it. And the people who are overly offended by it, that's fine. They can go in another direction. That's cool. But great brands do that. Great brands create polarity, and you can't appeal to the masses all the time. And so it was out of that then that I realized, all right, we've got this amazing brand, this amazing thing now that's going to get people's attention, and it's going to inspire men to actually mouth tape. Because going down to the pharmacy and the local grocery store, men are not inspired to go down and buy like surgical tape. No guy is. You're just not. But then when you actually see my story, because here's the best part of the story, RJ. The best part of the story is that my wife and I are back together. So we got back together and we have 2 kids. And now we've been together for the last 2.5, 3 years, right? Since we were divorced. And so when you see the story that I've been through and you see everything we put into this brand, then you can connect to it, right? And people feel like, oh, this is cool, right? And you see all the different people that use the brand and who they are. And there's an authentic story here, right? We're not just some faceless brand that's trying to sell you an adhesive tape.
So is this a male problem? Like, do women suffer from mouth breathing as well? Because I mean, it seems quite male centric, and I'm interested as to why that's the case. Is that just a chosen route to market, or are men generally the ones affected?
Well, so the statistical answer to that question is yes. The majority of men are the ones who suffer from mouth breathing more than women. Like my wife and I in bed, we're both 45 years old. She doesn't mouth breathe, but I do, obviously, right? And so more men suffer from this issue than women do. Now, I chose to target specifically men, middle-aged men, because that's who I am. And I knew that, all right, because this is a mistake that a lot of young entrepreneurs make, right? Is when they want to create a product, create a business, they try to go way too broad and think, oh, I want to appeal to everybody. But the reality is find a niche, find somebody you can build great product market fit for. And then naturally, if there's a big enough market, you're then going to start to attract everybody. Because look, Liquid Death, they did not think that they were going to attract all middle-aged housewives across the country, but now they've attracted the masses, everybody, right? So go all in on a niche, and that's what we did. We went in on my avatar, which is a middle-aged guy who sometimes has facial hair, sometimes I don't, but most of us do. And I was then solving a problem for that middle-aged man who snores like a chainsaw and his wife, can't stand it anymore and wants to sleep in the other bedroom.
In terms of how you sell the product, is it primarily online or are you actually in shops in the US, like in retail chains?
So we definitely started online, D2C. So we went through our website to start with. We didn't launch on Amazon. We wanted to build the brand, right? A lot of mistakes that young entrepreneurs make is they think, in this day and age, oh, it's easy to launch a product on Amazon. Well, it is, but what are you trying to do? Are you trying to just sell a product, or are you trying to build a brand? And I would say, if you're trying to just sell a product, cool, go to Amazon. But if you're trying to build a brand, don't go to Amazon. Build the brand, and then once you've created demand, meaning now people are going to Amazon looking for your product, then you can go to Amazon. And that's what we did. We built the brand, built the what it is, then we went to Amazon, and now our next phase is going into retail. So next year we'll be going into retail in Canada, and then hopefully across the country in the US here in Walmart.
What are the downsides, do you think, for an entrepreneur that wants to put their product into Amazon initially?
A lot of downsides. So you open yourself up to a lot of copycatters, right? Because remember, once you get on Amazon, everybody can see it, everybody can research everything about you, and then you're opening up the playbook. So again, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to build a brand? Because let's like look at it. Do you own the customer in Amazon? No, you don't own the customer. So when you sell a product on Amazon, how do you ensure that you can communicate to them, retain them, send them marketing emails, text messages, all that stuff? You can't, because you don't own them. So when you build a brand outside of Amazon, now you own those customers. You own that data. You can start to develop relationships with them and then grow from there. So that's what I would say is, again, it just depends on what you're trying to do. But I would tell most people, don't go to Amazon first. Try to build a brand outside of Amazon and then go there.
How confident are you that your product will do well in traditional retail shops?
Yeah, I feel really good about it purely because of just the brand that we've created. So for most anybody that's in, like, that knows about mouth tape, most people now know, oh yeah, hostage tape. Like, people have heard about us. We're that well known. And, Joe Rogan uses us. He talks about us. We're the official sleep aid partner of the UFC. Like, we've got enough high level organizations and people that talk about us now, and that just having the UFC alone, right, and then being able to be in retail, I know enough people would walk by and go, oh, I've seen that. I should try that. There's enough there for us. Whereas a lot of people, they want to go into retail. They want to make a product and get it into retail and think that's the answer, but it's not, because a lot of times, like, you have to actually create a presence, create awareness, something for people to even be interested. And the retailer isn't there to create demand for you. You need to create the demand for the product going into retail. So it's still up to me when we get into Walmart. It's still going to be up to me to drive awareness to get people to go into Walmart to buy hostage tape.
And then the unique challenge, I think, for you, which you're definitely, I can tell you're across, is ensuring that your product maintains that funky culture, right? Because I think to your point, like, if you go too soon, you commoditize your brand, right? Like, and then you don't also, I think you struggle to have the leverage against the retailer, right? Because I know here in Australia, retailers are pretty hardcore in terms of, like, shelf space, right? Like, and they're constantly negotiating for rebates, and there's a leverage. Like, if you've got the demand on your side, that's kind of your leverage against the retailer, right?
Here's how you think about it, right? So the way you think about it is, number one, does your product exist in retail right now? Okay. And is your product going to bring in a new customer or raise the cart value of the customer? And my pitch to a retailer is, and some of them are seeing it, is, look, my product, mouth tape, it doesn't exist in retail. We're going to be the first. We'll be the first official mouth tape brand that's in retail. Doesn't exist right now. So number one, we're bringing a brand new product, additional cart value into a store, and potentially bringing in people to Walmart that maybe wouldn't have shopped there before, but they know, oh, I'm a hostage tape user. I can just go down to Walmart and grab a month's supply because I'm running low. So that's huge if they know that.
Do you think that your business will potentially ever open up to a suite of products?
Yes. Yep. So think about this. So when you think about hostage, right? Yes, right now we're primarily mouth tape and nose strips. But where we've started to evolve this brand is thinking not just don't let bad sleep hold you hostage, but don't let life hold you hostage, right? Don't let fill in the blank hold you hostage.
That's
or hold your
good.
family hostage.
That's good. Yeah. So, we're keen to see what that actually means, right? Because now you're opening up the world to potential whatever, right?
Exactly. And think about the brand, man. Think about the IP of this brand that we own. We own the word hostage. And so nobody ever wants to touch that word, and I own it. So now just think about just that attention that you can get, and the just the recognition of anybody sees hostage anywhere in a store, like you, oh yeah, I've seen that. I've heard of that. I know that. Nobody wants to touch that word.
Yeah, no, it's a great platform to create so many different types of opportunities, right? Let's talk about some of your learning and primarily failures. So you talk about failure being a learning tool in your entrepreneurial journey. Can you share what failures looked like for you and how you've ultimately broke through those failures into maybe driving success?
Yeah. So, man, here's the thing: you can never be afraid of failure. You have to see failure as a good thing. And I think that's the thing a lot of people are afraid of. People are afraid of failure. They think failure is a bad thing. And any good athlete will tell you, because I'm an athlete, all right, I'm a coach. So my whole life has been defined by failing. And how do I learn from failure and then adjust and improve? That's been my whole life, right? A top level athlete is defined by his failure and his ability to adjust and get better. So I think a good example is the first order of inventory for hostage tape version 1.0. I screwed up the order. There was a detail that I didn't double check. I didn't double check the detail, and my dad always taught me growing up, measure twice, cut once, and I didn't measure twice on this one. So I put the order in. I didn't double check the details, and the first batch of inventory came in wrong. There was a detail, very important detail of it that was wrong. So then I have all this inventory that we had to just try to sell before I could get version 2 of it. And so the version that everybody has now is actually version 2 of the product, because the first version was a mistake.
In terms of how you manage the technical development of the product, like how technical is it? And do you make it yourself or do you outsource the manufacturing of that? And like, if you do, how do you manage and protect that IP?
Yeah, so we have a manufacturer. Yeah, we have a manufacturer that does it. And I got so technical as to the strength of the glue. I spent like 6 months figuring out the right level of adhesiveness on the glue, because that was a tricky part of making sure that it was not too strong, but not too weak. Right. And so I spent a ton of time on that. So we got very technical there on the exact number of the strength of it. Like there's a glue strength number that there's a scale that they use, and we know the exact number that we were like, this is it. And then in terms of like IP, like there's IP that we own around it. There's certain things you can't really, trademark and patent on something like this, but we trademarked enough around it that was possible. Like we trademarked the shape, the color, all of it. So like nobody can actually do this round oval black tape. We're the only ones who can actually do it. We have the trademark, and it's a matter of that. Then finally, everybody, getting their cease and desist, and everybody realizing, oh, they can't do it, and then they're going to get shut down. So things like that. So we've done as much as we can do, within the law that we're able to.
Around your product is obviously in your route to market and your branding, right? Like that's
brand.
key.
Yeah, it's 100% brand, man. Like, because look, at the end of the day, again, Liquid Death. I always talk way too much about them, but I just love the brand so much and what they did. They sell water. They don't have any IP. They don't have a patent on water. They don't have anything other than they created a phenomenal brand. And that's what we did. We created a phenomenal brand. That's our moat.
So as we look to land the plane, Alex, I really want to thank you for your time. It's a phenomenal product. I love what you've actually done with the brand. I mean, you've turned something which effectively could be a commodity product into something that is unique and different. And we want to share some of that secret sauce with the audience. So looking back at your journey, like what advice would you give someone looking to turn a personal health journey or discovery into a business?
Try to solve a problem. The easiest thing to sell to people is to solve a problem. Okay. And then take that problem, create something simple that you can then market and sell to that person. And then from there, I would say the biggest skill that people can learn is learn how to do Facebook ads. That's probably one of the most valuable skills that I learned. I went into this knowing that Facebook, when I say Facebook, I mean Facebook and Instagram ads, all of it. But I knew going into it that was how we were going to scale this business, was using Facebook ads. And so learn how to do that stuff, right? Especially as a young business person or even an old business person that's getting into it, doing it for the first time. There's certain things that you got to learn how to do that move the needle. Facebook ads is one of those things. It's a phenomenal skill that everybody can learn.
Did you, I mean, I would say you're a natural marketer, but did you become much more technically savvy around marketing channels, or have you outsourced it, or is it a combination of both?
No, we did all this in-house. Everything we do is in-house. There isn't really much of anything that we do use agencies for. I would say my 16 years of my previous software company really set me up for what I know now. So it's like a 16-year overnight success, right? All of the stuff that I learned is like an iceberg. You look at an iceberg and go, oh, there's just a little bit coming out of the water, but then you realize, oh, there's a lot underneath. And that's me. That's who we are. And so these instincts that I have, the way that I'm able to just navigate and see things and make decisions, I think it's because of just the years of experience of going through all this stuff myself. And then you just kind of develop that gut and you just know.
Absolutely. It's like when I argue with my lawyer about his costs, he's like, dude, you're not paying me for this document. You're paying me for the years of knowledge and skill that have enabled me to write this document for you. And I'm like, that's good.
Exactly. It's like, even though it only takes me 15 minutes to write it, it took me 20 years to learn how to write that in 15 minutes.
Sometimes I think that's forgotten, Alex. I really do. But look, I really appreciate your time, man. I value the product. I value you. It's been a really interesting conversation. We will post where to find you and your product on the show notes, but tell our audience where they can actually learn more about the product, man.
You got it. Yeah, you can go to hostagetape.com and you can find us. hostage tape on any of the socials, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all of them. And remember, don't let bad sleep hold you hostage.